There's a meeting on this Monday, February 24th. I'm Commissioner Sharon Bowles. I have Commissioner Jim Harvey with me and Commissioner Gage Ford. We also have Emily Wild from HR and Chris Crockett from our attorney's office. Item 1 is a discussion and or action for approval of the minutes for the commission work session held on February 10th, 2025.
You know, I've got those minutes right here, and I'll make a motion to approve those minutes.
I'll second.
A motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Item 2 is a closed session to discuss the character and competence of an individual.
Motion to go into the closed session to discuss the character or competence of an individual.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Commissioner Harvey?
Aye.
Commissioner Ford?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. We're now in the closed session. Okay, we are ready to leave the closed session, and return to our public meeting, looking for a motion.
Motion to leave the closed session. Go back to our work session.
Second.
Motion a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries.
Wow,
Welcome.
wow, they were at the door.
Wow.
Thanks, Chris.
I was thinking morning. Yeah, understand you.
How you doing?
Heard anything yet about 249? I don't see anything on the, can't see anything on the calendar.
Okay, I'm gonna tell them to call it out.
I think it's-
No, I don't.
I'm walking, but I.
No, I don't think it's.
Miss Clark?
I did. Hopefully they'll open those amendments into consideration.
I'll be the last. FedEx, I do, I had the memo in my office, right, I think it's right.
County's production.
Yeah.
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 No, nobody else.
Oh, I got it right here. That doesn't surprise me.
No, it's so sad.
You're running towards.
Oh, are you here to do the lines?
It's that one on the same front.
Like, if you want me to be mad at Christian.
First powers.
Ooh.
You look really good.
Yeah. That's a fighting, that's fighting.
Okay, we will get started. Our next item is a discussion regarding a zoning map amendment application, Brookview rezone from A1 to R115. 40 acres, Felix Severino.
Yes, thank you, guys. Yeah, of course, this is out in Western Weaver. We've had so much activity recently with these rezones, and this is a proposal that's from Dave Laloli. And he has a proposal to rezone this 40-acre piece. It's owned by the Martinis. And what he's laid out is a residential development that's all single family. You have one large parcel that the Martinis are gonna hang on to. It's like 2 acres. And they're showing this entire 40-acre piece would be developed under the R115 zone code. And in total, 116 lots. And we already took this before the planning commission. The Western Weaver Planning Commission looked it over, and they were pleased with what we presented, and they forwarded a positive recommendation to the county commission on this one.
Was it unanimous?
It was unanimous, yes.
There's just one caveat to it.
Yes, yes, the one caveat is related to, I mean, it was pretty clear that the planning commission was intent on some improvements to 1400 South Street. And so that's what this third page is helping to indicate is the nature of 1400 South Street currently is in need of some improvements. And there's some complexities surrounding that. Firstly, we don't have the appropriate right-of-way dedication along that stretch. So you can see from the Brookview development straight eastward on 1400 South, you've got a couple of line types there. You've got the white line type that's showing some shoulder improvements that could be required, that the planning commission would like to see, as well as that black line. And that relates to the underground or the piping of the ditch on that side of the street. And so those are some of the things that the developer is aware of, and they're willing to, entertain maybe providing some type of financial contribution in order to do that. And they're also looking at if the county commission is willing to accept a pioneering agreement to help pay those funds back to the developer as more development continues eastward for this property at some point. And so it is quite a huge expense. That's about a half a mile distance east from Brookview. And here's Dave Laloli right here. The Sorry, developer. that was 145. And so, yeah, that's really the heart of it. Right now we're working on finalizing the development agreement, and we've shared that development agreement, that template development agreement that planning division has been working on. We've shared that with the developer, and so they all are, everyone's aware of these requirements that we would have in the development agreement. Let's see here. That really covers what, you know, the kind of the gist of the project.
Questions?
Not for me right now, probably a little later.
Yeah, I don't have any questions right now. Does this, what I want to hear from you is this matches our current plan,
It does.
okay? I know you wouldn't be bringing us any spot zoning. Heaven forbid you'd think
Wow.
about such a thing.
Spot zoning, well, in this case, it would be as creating a new zone. And it does adjoin some
But-
existing.
But the
R1.
master plan allows for you to do that, correct?
Yes, it does, but, and just so you, for your information, it does adjoin a couple of other developments that have the same zone that were recently, so Anselmi Acres is right to the west of this. And then you have another one, it's called Bristol Farms, and previously known as Smart Fields. And both of those developments were rezoned to that R115.
I do have one question, and maybe this is just a technicality, but this is a zoning map amendment. What's the difference between that and a rezone?
Yeah.
Same thing?
I think it's the same. You would have a couple of things. It would not only change the zoning, but it would amend the zoning map that we use.
To include this new zone.
Yes,
Gotcha.
But it follows the general plan.
it does.
And the adjacent properties. I don't have any other questions.
Do we have enough, Gary,
Yes, sir.
do we have enough right-of-way protection along 1400 or what that's anticipated to be?
Yeah, so I wasn't aware of this meeting until last week. I reached out to surveyors. They were at a conference last week, so I haven't had a chance to talk with them to see where we're at right of way wise. So I don't know the answer to your question yet,
I
Commissioner.
think that's the only question that's left for me is to make sure that we're protected on right-of-way acquisition for our master plan on that.
Mhm.
That's a big thing.
But that doesn't happen at this step of the process though, does it?
Well,
Chair.
be something that would be included as a standard that, I mean, the county would have that responsibility to acquire that right of way. And, the developer would have some financial responsibility for those improvements along that section. And so I think it would be kind of a team effort for the county and the developer to.
So talk to me about the improvements. So you've got, yeah, I was on that road a couple of weeks ago. It's in bad shape. So what's gonna be required to improvements here?
Yeah, and as far as like what would be required, I think a lot of it comes down to, maybe we could get some recommendations from a traffic study to help kind of guide guide the county's recommendation on that. That's something that Gary Myers recommended, is a
Yeah.
traffic study at least for this section of 1400 South.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. So rather than, when you get to the development agreement, there has to be something concrete in there that you're gonna put in X number of feet of asphalt. The canal will have certain diameter pipe.
Mhm.
So that, rather than just say you're going in and improve it, and then we end up with something that's unusable in 2 to 3 years. I wanna make sure that the development agreement is very clear. Here's how much asphalt, here's the pipe size, so that we don't end up digging this thing out in 5 to
Right.
4 to 5 years.
And anytime you're adding 100+ lots.
Yeah,
That are now tying into a road, Commissioner, plus you're tying it into new developments to the west.
Right.
And an existing development to the south. It's tough to really predict where the traffic's going to go. So we kind of are hoping this traffic study will help us identify what we're looking to see the improvements become. And then, like you say, we tie that in with our existing master plans as to what other improvements it would trigger at that point as well, too.
yeah. Well, I mean,
So-
you're obviously gonna take a look at what's built there now.
Uh-huh.
You're gonna take a look at the future, how many lots is this?
116.
So you take a look at that, and then you take a look at the rest of the undeveloped ground that will,
Yeah,
and so that's, that's gonna be you're gonna look for a study for the future,
that's right.
not what is right now.
That's right.
And that's what I'm concerned about. If we say, somebody comes back and say, well, you got X number of cars right now, we only need an extra foot of pavement or
Yeah.
asphalt. 10 years, we're gonna be digging that up and do
And
what?
That's tricky too, because if you're widening just a couple feet, Commissioner, I'm sure you can imagine that over time, that joint is tough to
Yeah, no, I,
connect it into the old to the new, and it was put in a different time, so do you have settlement, differential settlement? Yeah, it gets challenging. So kind of like to look and see what the overall capacity
Yeah.
recommendation is that the traffic study is gonna help us with.
Right.
And commissioners, we've got a formula adopted in code regarding the applicant's mandatory or compulsory requirement in their financial donation or their financial liability to install. The question I think that Dave has asked is if the improvements that we need from him goes above and beyond that formula, would we be comfortable with giving him a payback agreement or some kind of a pioneering agreement for those improvements? Keeping in mind that the north side of 1400, between 1400 and the railroad tracks, the master plan, the general plan suggests multifamily there. So this is gonna be this needs to be a big road. It's an 80-footer. Long-term, we'll get 80 feet out of Dave's project. We got 80 out of the Anselmi project. Well, half that, 40.
Yeah.
And so we're getting a lot of street right of way from the developers. Only challenge is where development is not occurring yet. Do we tell the developer that he's got to figure out how to acquire that right of way? Or do we tell the developer, as long as you've paid your proportionate share, we, the county, will figure out the rest with the other landowners as they develop? So that's kind of a question that will be posed to you guys to the development agreement. I think we'll come up with a pretty easy answer for you, I think. But keep that in mind as we move forward.
And commissioners, for those that may not be super familiar with this particular road, just in preparation for this meeting, I went out there Friday and took about 6 measurements on it between 3500 west and 4300 west, which is west of here. We're averaging about 20 to 21 feet width of existing asphalt. Existing asphalt. The north side has a fairly significantly deep drainage to the tune of about 3.5, 4 feet. The south side is a little bit smaller drainage, but we anticipate you'll need drainage on both sides of the road by the time we widen this. So just to give you a feel for what that looks and feels like out there.
Madam Chair, I think
Yes.
you had a potential comment from Brian Edwards.
Do you have a?
Well, I think our chair, Andrew Favero,
Favero.
may have some comments.
Are you trying to say something, Andrew?
Yeah, just kind of along the lines of the road. Sorry, got a plane going over. That's a big point for the planning commission. That road needs to be improved. I've spent a lot of time on that road over the course of my lifetime because we've leased a lot of property over there to farm. And that's barely wide enough for 2 passing cars the way it is right now on existing asphalt. And the drain ditch on the north side of the road is deep and needs to probably be dealt with. And on the south side, if kind of our anticipation, I think, at the planning commission was that we didn't know exactly what the existing right of way is, but we felt like they could get at least maximize, hopefully as much as maybe 4 feet of new asphalt on the south side, all the way from the west boundary of that subdivision up to 3,500. Because if they're not going to do that, then or anticipate doing that, I think that the outcome from the planning commission would have been much different. Also, there's the gravity flow water situation with the folks in the subdivision to the south, and that was a condition of our approval as well. And that wasn't mentioned. I just want to make sure that that's taken into consideration as you guys hear about this. I think that's all I have for now.
I think the bottom line is everything that was discussed as a contingency needs to be addressed in the development agreement, it sounds like,
Yes.
so. Okay. Nothing else?
I got nothing else on this one.
Nothing else?
No,
Okay.
I think we got it clear.
Well, Felix, ready to skin you alive.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Commissioner.
All right, we have some of the same players here, so let's move on to item 4, discussion regarding Causey Access Project Utility Relocation. Sean Wilkinson from Scott stepped in. That means there's money involved, you
There
guys,
is money involved.
in case you didn't know.
All right. Commissioners, you are aware that we are working with the federal highways on some improvements up at Causey Reservoir. And to date, the county has already contributed a significant amount of money. I can tell you exactly how much that is here.
While he's looking that up, commissioners, we just began the process of acquiring some perpetual easements for the bridge we're going to redo as part of this project.
Perpetual easements.
Yeah, directly east of what used to be called the Red Rock Grill.
Red Rock.
Now it's Red Rock Taco, I believe. Anyway, we are going to be redoing that bridge over Beaver Creek right there. And rather than buy the property, we're going to do a perpetual easement, assuming property owners are on board with that. That saves a little money for us, still gives them some ownership and use of that property as well too.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was just.
No, you're
looking at
good.
that
Thank you,
space.
Gary. So that does play into this. So to date, the county has contributed $555,000 toward this project. That has come in stages as the cost of the project has increased due to the increased cost of construction and some other time delays and things that have happened. We have been asked to up our portion. The Forest Service has also contributed additional money. Now, part of our responsibility with this project was right-of-way relocation utility relocation and right-of-way purchase. So Gary has addressed the right-of-way purchase, and we had set aside about $20,000 to accomplish both of those. What we did not anticipate was that where we are moving the power lines outside of the road corridor, that does not fall within the franchise agreement we have with Rocky Mountain Power. Therefore, they do not cover the cost of it. That now falls back to the county to cover the cost of that utility relocation. So they have given us an estimate now. It's $48,750. Part of that is because they do have to use some cranes to reset some of these poles. And it just kind of is what it is at this point. So to make this project work, and they will do this relocation this year, this coming summer, we do need those additional funds contributed to this budget.
Currently, the plan, proposed schedule for this is once Rocky is done this summer with these relocations, we would then advertise this coming fall with anticipated about a year and a half construction time, roughly, depending on who the contractor is and what they propose.
Yes.
So that works out perfectly.
Now, is it possible for us to go into a closed session to discuss the purchase of property?
I don't know if we can without it being on the agenda.
And that's fine. I guess the question comes, we had a certain amount of money set aside to acquire property.
Yep.
Now we may not use all of that, so there may be some of that $20,000 that is still available for us to use toward this utility relocation. But right now we would ask for that full cost just so we have it, and hopefully we don't need the full $48,750. But we've had discussions with Kirk Nigro, with his engineers, with Tammy from the federal government, and this is what needs to happen for this project. So that's our proposal to you today. That money would come from our capital projects fund, just like the other contributions have. And at the end of the day, if there is a grant still pending, now we don't know what the state of that is with some of what's going on with the federal government right now, that may actually reduce the county's overall cost. Some of this money may come back to us. So we're hedging our bet a little bit, but right now we need to make sure that the project continues forward. And that's why we're making this request.
Questions?
I have a question.
Please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Timeline, can Rocky Mountain Power, if this does go through,
Yes.
can they meet the timeline to execute?
Yes, absolutely. It will take them less than a week to get this done.
Hmm.
They will pull their crews and put them up there, get it done in 3 to 4 days is what they're saying. And that will happen as soon as late May, early June of this year.
Second question, funding on all projects it's been put on hold.
Correct.
So,
If this,
you want to speak to that?
yeah, if this project does not move forward, then the money will come back to the county. The money that we have contributed and not spent will just be refunded back to us.
But this you're talking about now would be money spent.
This would be money spent to relocate those utilities, but in my mind, money spent well because we have plans. And if in the future that this project, and we're not saying that the project has not stopped. We'll make that very clear. The money has not been pulled. We're moving forward. If it were to be pulled, we would still want to relocate these utilities so that this project could be done in the future. So,
So is the money that we'd get back, the 500 and some odd
yeah,
thousand?
it would be part of that money that has not been spent thus far on design, yes.
All right,
So just to clarify, we've allocated 575,000 to this. We've only spent 50.
Yeah,
okay,
that's,
so I
I thought you said we'd spent that much. I'd more-
no, we haven't,
Obligated, but not spent.
that's how much
So
has
I-
been obligated by agreement.
That makes me feel better.
Yes, we just won't write, and we have to write on the check sometime this year. I don't remember exactly what it's in my notes, but
So I guess the intent would be, let's make sure that this project, we have the federal funds
Yes.
before we spend any of that remaining 500,000 or whatever.
Exactly,
Because I agree that I'm not sure anybody knows right now what's gonna happen.
right. So we have met with them in the last week. The project is still moving, money's still there,
Okay,
and they still have jobs, so.
well, up until
Better than some?
midnight tonight Eastern, then, you know, depends on whether they turned in their
Yeah,
resignation letter.
yeah, or their 5 bullet points or
Their 5
whatever, yeah.
Yeah.
But we're hopeful, we're very hopeful. We're hopeful because bidding would happen at the end of this year with construction to begin early next year.
Well, we have no control over that.
No,
Correct.
I just wanna make sure we're not gonna spend that 500,000 till we. But I agree, I think if the 20,000 or whatever it could be to relocate those, and especially if we have that perpetual easement.
Yeah,
Sooner or later, somebody will need that.
and so
Yes.
we'll go for it.
yeah, we're hopeful that the right of way relocation does not cost us that, or the purchase of the easement does not cost us that full amount. And we can use some of that toward the 48.
To that point, normally we would buy it, buy the property outright. But by doing it as a perpetual easement, we're only paying about 50% of the
Yeah.
market value for the property. So it saves us half the cost, right, in the purchase of the property.
Is the easement the same size as if we were to purchase it?
Correct, and it gives us kind of a envelope area, Commissioner, that if there's something that gets clogged during a high water event or whatever, we can get in there and work on it and keep it from damaging or flooding property, right? Keep the water moving.
Great.
So it kind of is the best of both worlds and probably the most financially responsible approach to this in this situation.
Makes sense.
Okay,
So with that, commissioners, are you okay if we work with Scott to get a budget change prepared? To put
Yeah.
I'm good.
that extra money in,
Yep.
and we'll get that going with Rocky Mountain Power. Okay,
we're good.
thank you very
Thank you.
much.
3 Fonzies.
We appreciate that, and we will tell them we're not coming back to the table with any more money.
You only said that
That'd be
17
appropriate.
times.
All right,
There better not be a change order, is what I'm.
yeah, I'm
Hey, this was not my design.
Hey,
Commissioner.
kid, listen.
technically Highway 39 is 12th Street, right? So.
No, thanks, Sean. Appreciate that.
It's just-
Yeah.
it's
Just
just-
kidding.
It's the gift that keeps on carrying.
All right, thank you.
Okay,
The next item is, Scott Park, Stephanie, Ricky Hackins. Ricky's not here,
Ricky is not here.
so.
Stephanie just walked out.
Stephanie,
Stephanie. Ebert.
Oh, okay, wrong Stephanie.
Hey, Commissioner Bolos, while you're waiting,
Yes,
did you get an email response yet that account has been set up in Masterworks?
I'm not sure, maybe.
I realize we have a work session on this. An hour
I'll
or
check.
so. I just figured out.
I'll check.
Yep, no worries. See you guys a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah, Sean has long legs. He played basketball or something, didn't he?
You know, pass these out on paper. I can pull them up on the screen if you'd like to see them, but the font was so small that it's.
Wow, you tested my eyesight, yeah.
Okay, so this is, we got two parts to that. I'll start with the first part and then Steph will hit us with another part. So these are purchase orders or contracts that were entered into in 2024, and a few instances before that, that we are having, the departments are asking to carry over from the 2024 budget to 2025. So they weren't spent. So for example, the very first item on there, the animal shelter, they had ordered replacement for all their security cameras, issued a purchase order at the end of the year. The work hasn't been finished, wasn't finished. by
At the end of the year, they issued the purchase order. They had the money all year. At the end of the year.
No,
they
this was from
issued-
that donation that came in, so they didn't have,
Okay,
the-
all right.
so this one,
We're talking about what happens most of the time.
but you're right, that does happen, and we do watch for that. A lot of people will. And I understand it in a way that they're hoping that there's nothing that pops up, but they have an approved project and they're saying, well, it's not super critical. We'll wait till the end of the year to do it in case something else more critical pops up. So I understand why they're doing it, but. So there's a detailed list. I'm happy to talk about any or all of them. But I will say that they were all previously approved in the 2024 budget. And just weren't spent before the end of 2024, and so they're being requested to roll over to 2025. So if you want to look at them, I'm happy to talk about any of them. I can hit some of the big ones. The total is huge. It's $15 million. Normally, when we do this, it's 3. The two big projects are the CJC building for nearly $2 million. You'll see that one almost to the top of that first page, those, if you add all those up together. And then 12th Street, which is $10.2 million. So if you back those two big ones out, we're actually right around the same amount we normally roll over from year to year.
Okay.
So I'm not super concerned about the amount of money that's being rolled over. They've all funded. We have the money available. So I'm happy to talk about any specific ones. The one or two items that you may look on here and say are a little weird. The Culture Parks and Rec is asking to roll over the remaining contingency fund from last year, and the money goes back into their fund balance, so it's not like.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. And then the sheriff's office is asking to roll $106,000 of building improvements to the jail that they didn't quite get done. We had budgeted like 20 different projects and they've been working on all of them. These weren't issued on purchase orders at the end of the year. Because they didn't know how much the evidence room was gonna cost, so they were kind of those, we wanna do these projects, but the evidence room is a higher priority, so we'll just see where we land, and so they're asking to roll over that money as well, although it wasn't tied to a specific purchase order.
I don't like not having any details on that. That's one point. My other point is, why is the Kiesel chiller replacement on here? What's this? I don't understand the story on Kiesel. We're not using it. We don't know if we'll ever use it again. And we're putting 148,000 into a chiller.
That's the chiller.
Yep. Very good question, commissioners. We've talked about that in budget hearings for years as to how much money we put into Kiesel and not, and what we're gonna do with it. Are we gonna?
Yeah.
So that's kind of a policy question. It was funded in the prior year budget. So previously we determined that it was something we were willing to fund. It just didn't get done. And so if we want to scratch that, we could reach out to them and say, hey, why are we doing this? Do we really need to do it?
I would like to ask that.
Okay.
I don't know your thoughts on that,
I've got
commissioners.
full confidence in that question.
And the 5 rooftop unit replacements, are those at the jail on 12th Street? Line right below that?
They're at 12th Street and we've spent most of it. There's only a $16,000 balance that we're rolling over. I don't know if that means that we've done 4 out of the 5. I'm not sure.
They just send us progress billing. So yeah, if you look at that original column in the balance to roll, so we're not asking to roll the full 153 on that. It's only 16,000. So they're almost done with the work, or we're almost done with the work at the end of the year. So there's just a little bit left.
But those, I believe those were 12th Street.
But the 16,000 is work that's not done, or that wasn't done.
Wasn't done as of
It's
the end of the
not
year.
just extra money,
Correct.
for sure, correct?
So if, for example, I have a purchase order and let's say on this specific one, I only spend $145,000. at the end, when we close the purchase order, that remaining money that rolls over will go away. So they don't get to keep that money. Does that make sense? Because it's funded with a rollover purchase order. So when they close the purchase order, I have the option to sweep the money away or to let it stay in the fund balance. And on most of these, we just sweep it away because your
Okay.
rollover was to do this project, not to have.
It's attached to that specific purchase order to that vendor, so I
Okay.
don't, so they wouldn't be able to use it for. And once that purchase order is closed, like Scott mentioned,
Okay,
it goes away.
The only ones that is not the case on, if you look on here, you'll see a few that have an NA in the purchase order number.
Mhm.
Those actually would just roll into their budget and
Right,
stay in
Which
their
is the one
budget.
you're talking
which is the
about.
one
Oh.
that was my first comment
Yeah.
is
Stay.
I don't really like not having detail on that. That's me personally.
I can show
That
you.
and then
Go ahead.
the Kiesel
Yeah,
improvement.
so for all those that have purchase orders, they'll go away. For those that don't have purchase orders, it just rolls over. And I can get you the detail of what they sent me on that 106,000. Let me pull that up. So it's not like they just said, hey,
Mhm.
just give it to me. I have.
And then it's a lot smaller, but the 6,600 one right below that, that's just
Heavy equipment.
sheriff equipment, like that's super general description.
Yeah, I have to join the Zoom meeting. Steph, would you grab that or someone and just show me the where you go to invite participants, it'll give me the code to log on. If you just click on that.
Well,
Or if I could borrow the mouse real quick. Sorry, I was-
He was looking at the mouse pad.
Or something.
I chipped a tooth this morning. I'm going to the dentist.
oh, it's just swell.
It is.
See, I'm sorry to hear that. So it's not too bad.
I haven't whistled too bad. Hopefully I'll be back in time for our lovely meeting this afternoon.
What? Did you say hopefully?
I should be. Join. That'll be fun. You can take it for me. That'd be fun.
How'd Mountain Dew chip a tooth?
Mountain Dew didn't chip a tooth. A soft apple chip chipped a tooth.
Really?
Wow.
That's not good.
Yeah, I maybe it just means I'm getting old.
Are you
What do
looking
you
up
mean,
the
maybe?
106? Is that what you're doing?
Yep.
Find out where that.
Oh. Now I can share my screen.
Sorry, thank you.
Share.
I'm enjoying it.
Is that coming up?
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, so these are all the project. Sorry, Steph, would you minimize the participant window? Let me see if I can make it big enough without having to zoom a lot. So here was the original 2024 budget in this column. And you can see it was $1.1 million and that ties out. This is what they used and this is what was remaining. So you can see as they go through, we had budgeted money for switches, $5,000 budgeted. They used $5,000, so there's zero remaining. And you can see the purchase order note. So as we go down here, you can see these various projects that some of them go over budget. So like the rooftop units, it's going to go over budget a little bit. Some of them are under budget. And so they had about 112 left. This is when Julie did her spreadsheet. And then you can see here's the 66.5 for equipment. You can see what their differences were. So they saved some money up here. They weren't able to do some of these other things. And so that's at 66.5. I go through and I take Julie's spreadsheet and I reconcile it. And so when I reconcile Julie's spreadsheet, there were a few expenses that came in after she had done her work. So that 112 number actually falls down to 106, which is what you see on your spreadsheet. And so it's not like they're just asking for the money with no purpose for it. They want to continue to fund the rest of these projects. Now, that said, priorities change, things like that. So I'm happy to have any discussion with the sheriff's office, or if you want to have a discussion as to what you want them to fund. But this is what it's not just up in the night number. We're just wanting it all over. They have them down to these individual projects.
The only reason I'm asking is because when we had a conversation during the budgets about the retention pay. That were promises made that we would scrutinize their budget. That's why I'm asking,
With what?
that we would scrutinize their budget if we agreed to that and then make sure that.
Yeah.
That's all, that's the only reason I'm asking.
Looks like the biggest one might be the countertops in the control rooms.
Yeah, the countertop one and the walk-in refrigerator,
So won't use that one.
yeah. But because they went over in some of these other projects down here, and so they used that to offset some of that
Mhm.
money. So, and we asked them to do that. We say, look, if you're going over in one project, don't come back and ask for money. Figure out which of these other projects isn't a
It's
priority.
not a priority.
And so they're doing that, which is good. But, you know, I just defer to you as commissioners if, what you would like to do on this.
Opinions?
Well, talking about the chiller for Kiesel. I see no sense in spending money on Kiesel at this point in time, since I've been told by the sheriff that we have a potential interested party, whatever that means,
Mm-hmm.
in purchasing Kiesel. So why would we spend $150,000 until we know
This year.
if there's really anything to that?
And if there's a potential interested party, they may be willing or required to make the upgrades that are necessary.
Well, my guess is if this person buys it, which again, I haven't talked to them personally or know anything about it. But anybody that wants to use that facility is gonna require major
Mhm.
renovation. The least of which is gonna be the chiller, so. Anyway, I just think it'd be prudent to hold off on that.
Okay, I'm happy
That's my
to,
opinion.
You
Madam
okay
Chair.
with that? A chiller? Okay.
Right there.
And the rest, I guess, if they're showing that the money's being spent on the right projects, that's why I kind of prefer a purchase order, so we know exactly how it's being spent. But,
yeah.
I mean, I understand their position, but
Yeah, and we do, and most departments operate this way, it's not
Yeah.
just them, so
Right.
like Sean will give them a whole bunch of money once they actually obligate it, because the
Yeah.
projects are always more or less than what they tell us in the
Mhm.
budget. So we make them kind of balance their own internal budget, and so the POs will be for the same amount or not, but we check that to make sure that we're not, spending over and then coming back and say, well, I have all this extra money to roll over. Well, no, you would spend it on these other projects in the red, so we're taking the money from the ones that were in the green and moving it to the red, that's all
So
you
the
have.
106 is not extra money. That's the bottom line.
Well, it's for
It's
these
money-
projects that weren't approved, yeah. It's not, we're just rolling over payroll savings, for example, or money we just didn't spend in our budget. These had items attached to them, we just didn't get them done in time. And so they're asking to be able to continue to
So
work.
they
on this.
were
Haven't
approved.
spent any.
They were approved.
They were approved.
Okay,
Yeah, this 1.17 was the approved budget number for 2020.
yeah,
okay, I'm all right with that.
yeah, I'm okay.
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 Okay,
So the only thing I'm gonna tell, the sheriff is I'm gonna reach out and say, hey, hold off on that, Kiesel chiller.
Mhm.
I don't
And then-
think he'll have any issues with that.
no,
Okay. Are there any other projects on here that you'd like to talk about from any of the other departments? The only other ones that had a lot of rollovers that didn't have POs were Parks and Rec, but their money stays in their fund balance
Mhm.
anyway, so it's not like they're in competition with anybody for that. And the only other thing I'll note with this before I give it to Steph is the state statute and our ordinances requires purchase orders for just about everything. For a while, we were being a little lax on what departments were entering as purchase orders because they have to enter a requisition that goes to the PL list, gets approved. And then we're also putting them in a contract module and those were getting approved. So we were saying, well, as long as it's one or the other, we don't really care. I do care now, and I'm forcing everybody to put in purchase orders or contracts in Munis in the accounting system. And so we've started that the first of this year. So what that means is as I continue to push more and more departments, you'll see items that you approve as a contract and then next week it'll show up as a purchase order because they didn't enter it as a purchase order to start with. So I'm making them enter it after the fact.
So you're just kind of teaching them.
Yeah, and so, if you see, but I don't want to hold up a project because they didn't, as long as I have money, I've not been that stickler. I just want it in the system. So you may see some of these things, you're like, Jason, why is this on the PO list? Didn't we approve that last week in a contract? And the answer is yes. And if they do it right, you'll see it on the PO list before the contract comes. And so you just be aware that when you start to see things, and I'll tell Jason, this is not a duplicate, but this was already approved on a contract, so you guys can see that. But you'll start to see some of those same things over and over again until people get timely with their entering.
Mhm.
Okay,
Okay,
Makes sense.
Steph, do you wanna go over yours?
Yeah, so we'll be putting all of these rollovers on our public hearing that we have to do for the budget changes in a couple of weeks. And the only other budget changes that we have that we'll add to this list, the one that you've already approved was $20,000 for improvements to the animal shelter, and that was already signed off on, and so we'll add that one. And then I've got 3 additional budget changes. We've entered them in KISS flow, but we have not released them to you. So we can either have you sign the paper forms or we can push them through on KISS flow, however you want us to do that.
Let's do the paper. We're here right now.
Okay. That's fine. So the first one is, the Friends Board, Friends of CJC has requested a salary increase for one of the staff at CJC. She was not included on the paper performance because of, she's separately funded by the Friends Board. So they've said that they would like to give her an increase. And so that's, they're increasing their donation that they give to the CJC. And so that is this one.
That just.
So that will
doesn't cost
increase,
us any- no,
increase our revenue and then just give.
So
her
it's
an
just a
increase.
wash.
Yeah, no net use of taxpayer dollars.
Okay. I'm gonna say,
I do have a question.
Okay.
Where does this fall, how does this fall in line with the salary survey? Salary study?
So this was basically in lieu of her paper performance.
Okay, so it's, okay.
Yeah, she did not get a paper performance with
Okay.
the rest of the staff, and so that is just, you can just sign, I think, on the bottom somewhere, just.
This is similar to like USU Extension Center. They're not like, well, they're
Okay.
not our employees and they get a
Right.
COLA.
right,
If
Yeah.
they're giving us more money to pay more.
yeah,
This,
Makes
You
sense.
need 3 or just 2?
just to, this one that I have, we also, when we are sending out the paper performance files, we allow departments that have more than one org, that they're over, to kind of move the money to and from those different, like, for example, the attorney has 2 different departments, and we allow them to use money in one department over the other if they have, the funds.
The
available.
old swap the org,
Yeah, swap the org.
Switcheroo.
Yeah, that
the
one.
old ploy, the old swap the org ploy.
Occasionally, we do have a few of these departments in the county that cross funds as well. And the crime scene, CSI, is one of those.
Mhm.
So the sheriff's office used some of the funds that they had available overall and gave it to their CSI employees.
Hmm.
And so they didn't go over their total paper performance, but CSI is its own fund. So this one kind of requires a separate budget change because we're actually moving money out of one fund into another.
So was this a salary adjustment?
So this was pay for performance as
Okay.
well. Yeah.
So the state law doesn't allow us to increase or decrease the total expenses in a fund. Total revenues or expenses in a fund without commission approval. So if we swap it from one department to another department within the same fund, it doesn't need a formal public hearing, but
Correct.
because it crossed funds, it does, and we don't have authority to just say, okay, we'll do it. So that's why we're getting you to sign.
Okay,
But it's all within the same budget we had. We just budgeted it to the wrong fund.
Okay, and the last one, it has to do with our tuition and student loan reimbursements. We go through an application process that HR distributes countywide. And the individual applications are not due until after we've already finished the budget. So we talk about the tuition reimbursement in our budget hearings, but we don't allocate those to the departments until those applications are received. So we had those applications approved and now we have the amounts. And so now we're just allocating them to the departments of the successful applicants.
so what's the total amount that we're allocating? Do we know?
I just looked at that and I can't remember.
Is it the 11,000 or?
Should be more than that.
Those are
I think it's more than
individual.
that.
Although, so
All
each
total.
of these is individual.
Mhm.
Wow.
Individual orgs, so that could be multiple employees though, right?
Okay, so that's fairly substantial.
It's a couple $100,000.
Yeah,
It's in line with what we normally do, but when we budget it, we just talk about, it's kind of like COLAs, I just give you one big number for COLAs.
Mhm.
But it goes all the different funds, it's the same type of thing.
so is this after they completed their degree or after they've, what's the requirement?
So the student loan is for an upper, what is it called? A graduate level, and it's a reimbursement.
Okay.
And so the student loans have to be actually student loans forgiveness. The tuition reimbursements are once they've completed their semester or whatever they're
So
going.
we could reimburse for a semester, but they may never complete a degree,
Correct,
right?
yes.
True. I mean, you could be paying them and they just never finished their last semester.
Mm.
And so that money, you would, I guess, isn't wasted because it's supposed to be in a degree program that helps benefit the county.
Yeah.
If they leave within 2 years, they have to pay back.
Yeah,
Kind of like the sheriff's training agreements, they have to pay it back. Which actually caused us some problems this last payroll.
Well, that's,
Um,
that was the bonus.
Well, that's true, but it's the
Mhm.
same concept, like they had to pay it back, so we had to try to claw back money from someone who quit. And they didn't have enough money in the last
Mhm.
paycheck, so that's always interesting, but
We've been successful on one, I know a couple, and then not, we're still waiting for reimbursement on, or payback on a couple others that have left.
that's why we hate advancing funds. But on the training
Why we
agreements,
split it up.
Why we split it up?
yeah, so, but anyway, this is the same thing, if you quit within 2 years, you have to pay the money
Mhm.
back.
right.
And most of the time, we can collect that out of their last check if, sometimes we can't,
Sometimes we get burned.
sometimes.
Yep.
Okay,
Okay,
anything else?
nope, that's it.
Okay, thank
So we're
you.
a few minutes ahead. Pete.
We are a
Wow.
few minutes behind, but I won't say any. Oh, we are ahead.
No, they're
Yeah,
ahead.
we had a
You're
half
tiny
hour.
hour.
I don't know that
We are a
well,
few minutes ahead.
sometimes you guys have lots of questions on the rollover, sometimes you don't, so I never know how much to put.
Okay, thank
You
you.
did good, Scott. Swell, it's
Well, yes,
swell.
When is your
I
dentist
shouldn't have
appointment?
said that, I'm
it's at,
sorry.
it's at 4 o'clock today, so I'll be there.
You
for-
are pushing it.
Well, because the meeting's at 6.
Okay.
I'll be there, I'm just hoping that they don't I'm gonna have to tell him you can't numb me, so he's just gonna have to fix it without it numb.
Drill, baby, drill.
Real.
Okay,
pretty
thank
funny.
you.
That's pretty funny.
We'll change out the room. The others are probably waiting for us. I guess you're not leaving, Scott.
And
You'll be able to make that phone call earlier than you thought.
She's already responded.
Anxious to hear from you.
Well. She thought it was about. Nonprofits.
Oh.
Yeah, WG.
WG,
William George.
oh, okay, I
William
was like,
George.
this is Bill Ross, I don't know who WG is.
VR.
Yeah, who is that?
Okay, item 6, discussion regarding solid waste fee ordinance amendment.
Here we go.
Thank you. So commissioners, Waste Management has now given us the increased rates for the Ogden Valley for 2025, and they start on April 1st. So based on their calculation, with inflation and the table that they use, it's a 5% increase that will take place. So what that means in 2024 for one container, the typical customer would have paid $63.96 per quarter. And in 2025, for one container, they would pay $66.87 per quarter. So that's a difference of $2.91 per quarter with that 5% increase. Now, we recently reduced the county administrative fee in Western Weber County by 50 cents from $2 down to $1.50. And we want to know if you want to adjust the county administrative fee for the Ogden Valley in any way. So that is the question today.
Are we collecting too much or too little?
We are collecting too much.
We are. So that's part of this. So Western Weber and Ogden Valley funnel into the municipal services fund into the same account. But we still do need to make a reduction. So we could do the 50 cents and make them even, so they're both $1.50, or we can really do whatever you want.
So essentially, we'd drop it from $2 to $1.50 per month, so we're saving
Correct.
$1.50 per
$1.50, yep.
quarter.
So,
And they're only going up 97 cents per quarter, right?
they are going up
Or 291.
291,
Yeah.
yeah, per quarter, sorry.
So it would just be the difference between that.
Yeah, I told you wrong. I told you quarterly, it was actually.
$1.41
monthly.
going up, it would go up $1.41.
Yeah, it would end up $1.41 per month
month.
instead of, or
Per month.
per quarter, instead of 291
Per quarter?
Yeah.
per
Per quarter.
quarter. That's right. per quarter.
Gage, that's 23 cents, in case you're.
Yeah.
23 cents a month.
Well, I don't know why you wouldn't want to keep them the same, just for consistency.
Yeah.
Because
And if we're
somebody from
still
the valley will
overcollecting.
pick up on it, will get questioned.
That is true,
And we'll
and
get Nod Valley News.
so.
Give them the right numbers.
This contract expires next year in April of 2026. By that time, it will not be our contract anymore.
Will we carry the contract through April?
No.
Will it
It
transfer?
should transfer as soon as we lose authority.
Mhm.
So I'll have that conversation with Waste Management. I have talked to Blakely and Ellie about it. He is aware, but we'll have more conversations. Because I know they're interested in getting some level of security up there. Because the contract right now does have extension provisions and. I'm
So
sure
they want the
to-
continuity on this.
They do.
Yeah.
Yeah, they do.
That new mayor's gonna have a lot to do in it in
Yes,
6 weeks.
yes, they are. Now, commissioners, we've talked about this before. If you wanted to, you could extend that contract for a year or 2 years or whatever you wanted to do, or you can just leave it alone and let the city do what they want.
Well, if we extend the contract, then they would contract with us. Right?
The contract would just extend further into the future and they would
That's
have
not
to,
our jurisdiction anymore.
they would honor it. They would have to honor the contract.
We would just be in charge of garbage up there.
No, so my understanding is as soon as the new city takes over, this contract becomes theirs. So they have an existing contract in place that they have to honor for the remainder of that term.
Okay, that makes.
That's the way I'd prefer to go. I think
But
they're
then-
gonna have enough on their plate with other things.
They
This
can
kinda
extend
helps.
it though, they still have it through April.
That's true.
And they can extend it from there. If we make the decision to extend it for 3 years, then we're gonna be in trouble for making
Oh,
that
yeah,
decision.
no, I'm sorry.
That's how I truly feel.
Yeah.
I think we go a year and that's it.
So we'll let it expire. So we'll say from January till April, you guys have a contract, city, you're welcome.
Right.
And then in April, you guys can figure out whether you want to go with them, rebid it out, get rid of garbage service. That's all.
Let
your
them make
decision.
the decision.
Okay,
Will they be the ones that have to put the dumpsters around Pine View from there on too?
that's a really, really good question. That is in the city boundary.
That's
Oh, perfect.
part of their city, so I don't know why we would do it.
The pathway, those parking lots, there will be some decisions that need to be made by the city, yeah.
Will we lose that revenue that we get from the contractor?
Well, that's a good question. Right now, the contract's with us. I'm
Yeah.
Assuming that it would probably go to the city.
That, I don't know how all of that works. but-
It's on my list of questions along with about 100 other things
bet.
as to what do we do with all this, and a lot of them we can't until the new city gets in there, we just won't know.
Well, my guess is that especially if they're responsible for the parking and the garbage, be very similar to what Huntsville, because the vendor actually pays Huntsville under a separate contract and pays us. So
Yeah,
I guess my answer is more than likely.
Mhm.
I would think
More
so.
than
It
likely.
makes sense that they should, since they're gonna have to be responsible for the garbage cleanup.
Yeah,
I'm glad you have a list. Because
I guess we could always give
it's
the
gonna be
option.
quite a
if
transfer
it would.
on January
It
1.
really will.
Yeah.
I guess early November, November 5th, is that the election day? November 6th, we'll be spending a lot of time with.
So on
Yeah.
November 6th,
He or
we need to
she.
get a meeting set up with the city council, because it's a week mayor form of government.
It
isn't
It is a
yeah.
week mirror,
So we need to get their whole city council together and just
for sure.
hash out a lot of these things. And I think you've got, sorry, this is not this topic, but we've got a lot of leverage because they have no roads equipment
Mhm.
and they have no ability to procure roads equipment in a short period of time. So I think if we try to tie a lot of this together and say, look, we're gonna continue to do everything as is. Oh, by the way, you're not getting any sales tax revenue until September. You're not getting any property tax revenue until November. So you have almost zero cash to operate for the first 6 months. I think we can just step in and say, look, we're willing to help you, and these are the terms that we're willing to do.
Well, I don't think they have a choice. Like you said, looking at they're not gonna have any cash in the bank
Yeah.
until September,
Mhm.
and nothing real cash in the bank until November.
Mhm.
Yeah,
So, I don't think anybody's gonna sign a contract with them on the assumption that they're not gonna get paid until October, November, or December.
Well, I talked to Zions Bank, they'd be willing to issue them a tax anticipation note, if, to be helpful to get them up and running up to their property tax amount. But you're right, I mean, they're gonna collect building permit fees and, miscellaneous fees they charge, but that's
Yeah.
it.
No, they won't
Their
because
tax-
they're gonna do a moratorium.
And yes, so they're gonna have a lot of startup expenses and they're gonna have zero cash. So I think that puts us in a good position to negotiate how we phase out of these things that works best for both of us.
So solid waste will be one of them.
Okay, so your preference is
I
that we
think
just leave
reduce
the
this-
contract alone?
Yeah,
Let it run through April of next year
Yeah.
and then they.
That's how
they
I
can
feel.
Okay, they can do what they want.
Sorry to speak out of. turn.
however, if we can help them, if we meet with their new leadership and they would like us to extend it because the terms would stay the same, then I think we can do that.
Okay, when that new city council is elected, we can start having those conversations and I'll put Blake in touch with them as
Yeah.
well and
If they wanna go out to bid, then they can.
Yeah.
But if not, if they feel comfortable with the price and they wanna continue, then we still have a month and a half to sign another contract that would roll over to them.
sure,
Okay,
okay. But you're comfortable with the 50 cent
Yeah.
decrease,
I think so.
okay, per month on the.
Yeah,
it's
so we'll
county
match the
admin.
Western Weaver.
So you'll let them know and just.
Yes, I'll let them know, they'll make that change and then we'll get another ordinance amendment before you to make that
Okay,
official.
great.
Great.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Sean's staying, Scott's staying, Bill's staying. We need Scott Mendoza and Rod Layton.
Let's see if there's a Mountain Dew in there for this one.
We are rolling ahead at a quick pace, aren't we?
We're 15 minutes ahead.
For three bright people. One.
We need to talk sewer ordinances or sewer fees too, Sean. We got
Okay.
a couple of increases that get passed through for
Oh, Central Weaver.
Express Bill.
Oh,
And I haven't seen the Central Weaver, but I'm
Okay.
waiting for that, but I want to do them both at the same time.
Okay. And I've got to return a call to Republic to find out what our increase will be for.
Such a thing.
I know that.
After the 19th.
I know that.
Yeah, because I'm worried about that for the trans.
Okay, we're back here with item 7, a discussion on CJC project. Scott Mendoza, it looks like you're leading this one.
Okay, yes. If you're ready, we'll start.
Please.
Commissioners, this has to do with construction of the new Children's Justice Center. This is change order 5. During our review of change order 4, we identified, or the three of you identified, one of the proposed change orders, or what Wadman Corporation calls a WC. Again, within one change order, we've got proposed change orders that they call WC. So in WC 22, you might recall the last time we talked about change order 4, it included WC 22, which is an extension of time. You'd questioned the cost. Since then, what we've done is gone and gathered some information and presented that. We sat down with Commissioner Proer and just made certain that he was comfortable with everything that makes up WC 22. This particular part of the change order makes up an increase. Well, it adds 90 days to the construction period. And the cost associated with that is $54,983.77. Commissioner Proer, you might remember us sitting down with you. We had
I do
project
remember
manager
that.
from Wadman Corporation. We went
Yeah.
through just about every line item that made that up.
Yep.
One thing that we wanted to clarify, and you picked up on this very early, that in the breakdown of those costs, that they had provided some payment for the project manager. Commissioner, you were right, that was part of what was listed here, but a $0 cost. So I should have pointed that out the last time that we were all together, but you might remember that table that we presented with all the costs. One of the items that was kind of a surprise to us was the installation of the elevator, and it costing about $6,000 more just due to the fact that we don't have permanent power. That's one of the costs that is part of this particular WC. But this is the first item we want to present to you, and Commissioner, I think if I remember correctly, you became much more comfortable when we sat down and went through these line by line.
I did, and with the understanding that if the deadline that they're anticipating under that cost sheet moves forward, that they will give us a rebate.
Yeah.
So in other words,
Right.
that would basically be worst case scenario. And if the electrical gear came in prior to it, then that number would go down.
Yep.
Yeah.
So,
I like that.
Yeah, they agreed to that.
Okay.
Okay. The second WC that we wanted to just mention to you, WC 27, call station and annunciator relocation. The call station has to do with a radio system that, or a communication system within the CJC. The annunciator is a fire communication box, more or less.
It's like a remote control off the main panel where you can shut things down and silence the alarm instead of having to go find the other thing. It's usually located by the front desk of an office, which is where it was at this point.
Yeah, and it still is. However, as you enter on the new entrance, as you come into the building on the right, that's where it was located originally. Because there's the potential of putting a beautiful mural on that large wall. We've chosen to take the annunciator and the call station off of that wall. So it's basically a nice blank canvas there, just moved it to another wall. The cost associated with that is $318.
I don't know about that one.
I was worried about that.
I'm just kidding.
Okay, WC 29, the children's cabinet. I'm going to let Rod explain this one because I think he has a solution. So this is something that we're not going to be asking that the project budget pay for directly because he has an idea. And then I'd like him just to explain a little bit about what this is. Instead of going one direction, we've chosen to go another, which fits into the building much nicer.
Yeah, so as the kids come out of the forensic interview, the last step that they do is they head back towards their parents into those waiting rooms. So what we do is we stop them and there's donated items. So there's some stuffed animals or blankets. There's a few other little things. Sometimes in the winter we'll have gloves, we'll have stuff. It's been really, really successful. I think in one of the commission meetings downstairs, we talked about the two girls that I talked to, that their cases were 20 years ago and what they remembered. And they remembered my stuffed animal and I remembered my blanket. And so the importance of that, we realize that what we have to be careful is as the kids come to the interview rooms, that they don't see those items first. And then they'll say, oh, can I have one of those? Then it puts our forensic interviewers in a bad situation where they have to say, well, yeah, you get one of those. Now we've got an issue with that. So the way we've designed the building, they don't see them as they come back out. We wanted the last thing that they see is, the wall has a mural on it. We're gonna put some really nice artwork. We're gonna put some shelves there, and we want those to be nice. We don't want, to put up something that's not, and that's where the blankets will be. That's where the stuffed animals will be. That will be the last thing that they really see at that point, and then we take them back to their parents. So we talked to the architect about that. He said, I think it's a great idea. We're gonna change a little bit of the carpet even to make that blend in. But we're going to make it nice. We're gonna make it something that stands out as those kids come back out of that process. I'm just gonna find donated money, use some of the donated money that we have. That's a perfect fit for somebody that's donated money to do something like that, because it's a direct victim service. So the cost, what was it? The total it's $7,400 to build this platform and shelves and things, but we'll get donated funds for that.
Sorry to come in late, Madam Chair.
Yes.
Are they open shelves or are they cabinets?
They're open shelves, but.
Has that been a problem in the
they're
past?
layered.
Where they get to see everything? Oh, wow.
They'll get to
I'd like
see
this and this and this and.
They'll get to see everything, but they won't see it on the way in to the interview. They'll see it on the way back out, and then usually their parents are close by, and so, yeah, the kids will say, I want those 5 animals and I want that 6 blankets, and the parents will usually go, no, you get 1 animal. Really, it's pretty rare that the kids ask for more than one thing.
Okay,
And so we do try to get new stuff. We try to get brand new animals, stuffed animals, and blankets are always new. So we try to get good quality stuff, but it's amazing the effect that has. So that's what those are for.
great.
Okay. WC 31 is the next item. This is a air conditioning unit that is located in the control room downstairs. The superintendent found that it was designed and planned on being just above some other electrical equipment. Bill, do you remember where that was exactly? It was over an electrical panel, I
Yeah.
think is what the situation was.
Let's split duct just a little mini split.
I believe so, yes. And so he suggested that we take that, move it away from the electrical panels, put that over the doorway. And that's what resulted in this WC for $1,900.
And what that does,
Much
is
safer
they have
situation.
condensing lines and everything off those split units that have to drain, and you're not allowed to have any of those things above electrical services, so that's why that had to be moved.
They want $1,900 to move it?
Yeah, cause they're moving already
line
run
set?
line sets
Oh.
and everything. It's already been sheet rocked. It's already, just one of those. Yeah, it's a bit. Have to extend the.
If you're ready to move on, we have WC 32 attic access. Nobody realized that through or during design, they didn't provide some doorways to get up into some attic space. And so they looked at the space, determined that 5 would be adequate. And so what's happening is the county's going to pay for 3 new attic accesses. Again, like Bill was describing, the walls are set, the ceiling's in, they're gonna go back in, cut these in and put in some nice looking entryways. County's going to pay for 3. Wadman, just out of the goodness of their hearts, honestly, just chose to pay for 2. So the cost associated with adding the attic space doors is $1,938.
How much again?
$1,938, $1,938.
So those were not in the design?
No. Wes,
Wouldn't the architect pay for that?
Well, that was going through my mind. What architect doesn't put in attic access?
yeah,
That ought to go back on the architect, in my opinion.
Rod and I asked the superintendent for an opinion on that, because we had the same feeling. We were
Yeah.
wondering what approach we should take, and in the superintendent's experience, he said, no, we see that often, we end up adding more. He said, and nobody's perfect, and that's the answer that we got from the super when we. Actually, he said, we're all human. And so we did question that and ask for an opinion from him on that, and that's the response we got, but if he wants to check on that, we're happy to ask now. But we
That
understand,
rubs me the wrong way.
we understand your concern.
Wrong. Wrong.
We're happy to move forward however you'd like it.
Do you want them to push back?
Is that Casey you talked to?
Yeah,
I think we gotta go back to architect and tell him, look, Wadman takes 2, he takes 1, we take 2.
Yeah,
He ought to put in a little flesh on this.
yeah, that's fair. And if if he pushes back, and I'll just say, okay, well, we'll take 1, you take 2 then.
Yeah. I think us taking 2 and 1 is a good
Yeah,
deal for
that's a
him.
really good compromise.
so the architect covers
Unless
one.
Rod can get the donation for
And
it,
put that $1,900 more into those little teddy bears or stuffed animals.
just get one for 10,000, you got them both done.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about my other stuff?
Scott would have given that to you last week, but now he's 10,000.
I know he's getting.
We'll get to that in a minute.
So Wadman
Scott will give
2,
me-
County 2, and the architect helps out with the 1. Okay, all right. You may, well, we'll get through the rest of these, but on this one, you may not see this WC in change order 5. We may just pull that out and address that in the next one. Okay. WC 33, mechanical shaft. There's some mechanical equipment down in the basement. They had built a wall that conceals a lot of the vent pipes that go up through the ceiling and rooftop to vent that mechanical equipment. After that had been built, what we realized was that the mechanical equipment and the location of that, the position of those units, sent the vent pipes up, and because of where the mechanical equipment was designed to be, those pipes couldn't be concealed within the wall that had been designed to conceal it. So we had to fur out that wall and drill through the concrete floor.
Five locations, right? Wasn't it
I
5?
think it was 4 or 5.
4 or 5, I think it's 5 locations. We had that core drill, 2 floors. Okay, that's.
So to accommodate the location of those vent pipes, core drilling, and then furring out the wall, they are concealed, so everything looks great. The cost associated with that is $3,409.
Cheaper than I thought.
When we heard about, well, they started talking about relocating the vent pipes, we immediately thought it's a concrete floor. Does that mean drilling? And yeah. So.
That's a pretty good deal for what that is.
Yeah, we jumped them pretty hard on it right off the bat with that one and went and walked the site, and problem was the ductwork took up the whole space. Unfortunately, the ductwork size was bigger than they
Those
did.
tin men, they're proud of their stuff.
And not much you can do about that.
Okay, next one, WC 34R1. This has to do with the interview rooms. And I'll let Rod describe this one, because it is interesting. It has to do with privacy. So you want to describe that?
Yeah, so the interview rooms have to be completely soundproofed. That's been the big problem we have at the old one. Everybody can hear everything, so we made sure that the walls were soundproofed up in the ceiling. They had put insulation, soundproofing type insulation in all those 3 rooms. The fire marshal came by and rejected that, saying that the water line coming down, the water sprinkler line, was being restricted by the insulation that we put in. So we had to pull all of that soundproofing insulation back out. We had to cut the sheetrock. It wasn't sheetrock that you will see. It's covered by another roof, another thing, and we had to blow in insulation so that it doesn't restrict the fire line. No, we capped the fire line actually, so we actually capped that fire sprinkler pipe, and we blew in insulation in the top of those 3 interview rooms to continue with our soundproofing, but now it doesn't restrict the fire lines in that fast. So
It's a
So there
requirement of the
was-
fire marshal.
Say, nope, not, you can't do that.
So there was soundproofing batting in place and fire suppression sprinklers. And it basically said you have to either get rid of the batting, have your fire suppression sprinklers in that cavity, or terminate them and fill the whole thing with blown-in insulation.
Was it blown in or was it foam?
It's blown in.
Okay, I was thinking it was foam.
So now that cavity is completely full, which provides the fire protection. So those are two choices.
And our soundproofing, which is
Yeah.
critical, we've got it, it's gotta be soundproofed.
So the cost associated with that is $4,827.
Well worth it.
We have to do it, it falls under the NFPA, which is local jurisdiction, says what has to be done, so we have no option of doing that, so.
So did you say you took out the sprinkler then?
They count.
Capped it,
So you're not gonna have any fire suppression?
well, you don't have to, cause it's filled now.
Well, it's filled with
It's
the
filled now,
insulation,
instead
that is
of,
your fire.
instead of batting in the thing, that's why you had to have it there, now it's full, so.
That
Okay.
takes place
Yeah, it
all of the
does.
So
spring.
there's no airspace in it?
Right.
Right.
Got it, okay.
Okay, the last WC, we have WC 36. It's a stair modification. Actually, what they did in what is really essentially an open stairway. In the plans, it showed 3 can lights, but technically, the lighting wouldn't be clear up until the top, the ceiling of the second floor. So they're eliminating 3 can lights. It wouldn't be all that effective. And they're adding 2 sconces to the stairwell, so it'll go on the walls instead of way up high in the ceiling. The cost of that is $1,051. And it should look very nice. So that is all of the items that make up change order 5. We asked Scott to come because what we wanted to do is present to you our understanding of exactly where we are in the budget.
So I will share my screen.
You need the mouse.
No, I've got it over here, so we'll be okay. Can you see that, commissioners? Is that big enough or is that? Okay, so original budget in column B. We originally planned to get $7.25 million of revenue. You can see the sources, ARPA being the primary source. Existing building sale, $1 million, some other donations and such. Uses, 7.8 million, of which mostly to Wadman and some contingency. So we were short $573,000. We asked Rod to go out and do bake sales to get more money from the Friends Board and from the state, anything he can to help cover that shortage. If we're short, the county's capital projects fund will kick in the rest. So revised budget now, been a little more successful at getting, sorry, one last thing I wanted, we had planned to collect $63,000 of donations as well. So you can see our revised budget, the Friends Board's gonna kick in some money for some art, but that's also an expense, so it doesn't really change our shortfall. Our shortfall is still the 573,000. When you look at where we're at actual, we're doing all right. And then I hit a couple of columns over here. I just wanted to give you an idea of where we're at with these change orders. So change order Scott just talked about was about 75,000-ish. Change order number 6 is gonna come through that he'll tell you about in a bit. Well, that's okay. That will be about $72,000. We're guesstimating some appliances, but the Friends Board's gonna fund those, and then property management labor, we haven't seen that bill yet. I don't know what to estimate, so I just put a placeholder in there. We will receive some money back from Ogden City. We had to put down some money when we pulled the permits. It should be refunded. And then we have our remaining contingency. So you can see down here, we budgeted 6.6, where the current contract is 7.1. And so you can see how much is left in actual. So I just been pulling money out of the contingency fund. Every time that we have a change order, every time we have another expense, we just pulling it down. I still have $24,000, almost 25,000 left in contingency. But with change order 5, change order 6, even counting the money from Ogden City, now I'm short another $22,000 plus whatever property management bills is. So hopefully it's not a ton, but I just don't know yet.
Does that, let me ask you a question. Does that include the 7,400 for the box?
The 7,400
For the
Shelf.
shelf box? Yeah.
The,
Yeah, cause that's
Is
a
that
change order
included here?
5.
The 7,400 we'll pay out of from the Friends Board.
But that's included here, right, Scott?
No, because the Friends Board, we don't get their invoices, they're not our expenses. So for example, the Friends Board went and spent $10,000 for appliances.
It doesn't pass through us.
It doesn't pass
Okay,
through us.
that's
So
what I
if they
didn't
give me a check, like the arts
Yeah.
board's gonna
That's
give
what
me
I
a
was
check,
getting
yeah.
at. Okay.
Yeah. So if it comes through me, it's on here.
And
If
it's
it,
not going to.
I believe that
going
that's
to.
the correct, the case, right? Friends Board is going to pay for the appliances, it's going to pay for
Yes.
the aquarium, it's going to pay for the shelf, right?
Okay,
Yep.
So none of that will be Weaver County Corporation
Okay.
expenses.
all right.
We'll provide you with that, what that amount
Okay.
is, just so we can get a total budget
Yep.
amount on the project
Okay.
itself, but.
Okay,
And I always,
For you.
I tease Rod, you know, you still gotta give me another $40,000 of donations to make up for what we talked about originally. So if that doesn't come in, and if you know, we're over another 20,000 here, so now we're over 60.
Mhm.
Plus that, you know, we're looking at $600-ish thousand from the county capital projects fund is where we're standing at about right now. Now, Rod was talking and said, we're hoping to get a little more money for the state. If they can get us another $200,000, then that would reduce from $600,000 to $400,000, what we've got to pull from capital projects.
Hold on, Gage,
Yeah,
you got us more money coming from the state?
well, I did till I just saw some people came in with a bill that Weaver County voted against. I'm gonna find out why, but.
It-
Randy, so, you're talking about, the CJC?
Yeah,
Yeah, and we do have, I've talked to Tracy Tabbit about this, and Tracy does have some more money.
Yeah.
But what's happened is there's a couple of centers that are actually gonna go purchase buildings. They're moving instead of constructing a new site like we have. They're just gonna go buy a site. And so since we got so much this last time, they're gonna use up a lot of that money that the CJCs are getting for this year. So I just told Tracy, do what you can, you know. She said, I can probably get you 200,000, and I said, how about getting me 400,000 and 300,000, and so. It's just like anything else, she's gonna wait to see what requests are made, and when we get to the 1st of June. She's gonna come back and say, Rod, you get everything that's left. And so she will keep track of that and give me all the money that other centers don't use, but we've moved from first in line to down the line a little bit because of what happened last time.
what's the status on our existing building?
They're showing it a lot, they're showing it almost weekly. We should have probably taken the offer that we got the first time.
Which was what?
It was $1 million.
Oh,
A million, but we countered with 1,100,000, and then they came back and said, well, it only appraised for 980.
Was that the vet?
So, and so we can't get it. They would have had to finance it. They weren't gonna just pay cash for it, and they couldn't get the financing, so they withdrew. They're still in the running, they're still out there, and we've said, we'll take $1 million if you guys wanna come back, and they haven't.
Mm.
So we don't know if we just blew the chance there to do that. Some of the board members were like a little, you know, regretful that we did just take the $1 million and run with it.
So we can be a
Since-
little shy on that as well.
So we'll get $1 million, we're not gonna lower it $1 million, we're gonna stay with $1 million, but then we'll have realtor fees that's gonna come out of that.
You won't net $1 million.
So that's where we're at, but we are showing it a lot, and you know, we fixed up a bunch of stuff, and we're doing the best we can with that, but
Okay,
that's where we're at.
all right. Okay,
So worst case scenario, we're $600,000-700,000 more out of county capital projects. To fund the shortfall if the building doesn't sell for as much, if we don't get the $200,000 from the state and so on. So that's just kind of ballpark of where we're at.
So we're about 22,000 over budget now, but kind of proud to say that we've been operating with a contingency of about 8% rather than one of a full 10 or 15%. And the soil issues. So
Mhm.
I'm pleased that I wish that we could come and say we're well under budget, but with an 8% contingency, I'm pleased that we're where we are.
Me too.
I'm sure this
Yes.
this question probably more for Scott part two. So we're looking at labor for property management. They're basically all they're doing is they pulled all the wire and installed all the jacks and everything like that. You know, so county owns the building, right? So I kind of look at it as like, if I'm building my own home, you know, I'm a journeyman electrician and I do, you know, my own electrical work. I'm not gonna charge my labor towards that, but I'll may take a draw for the materials on a construction bid with the contractor if I made that a part of the agreement. I see that kind of the same way here. I don't know why we would charge labor from property manager where we own the building, we own everything. Oh, they're only in it probably 2 or 3 weeks worth of labor to pull the wire and put the jacks in. I can see paying for the materials, but do we really need to?
It's to correctly account for things.
Yeah, you've got one fund that's doing work for another fund, so while I don't disagree, but
But
what
it's
we
not their
basically.
It's
building.
just one hand to another hand, Bill.
Yeah,
It's just. so it gives a
Yeah,
more accurate
But the
picture.
CJC never owns the building. We own the building.
Yeah, I know,
So
but
this
it's-
is county capital
it's
projects
inside.
that's spending the money, so it's coming from property management to county capital projects. You're right, it's not in the CJC's budget at all,
Which
which
is
is
what
why.
property management's funded most of their stuff out of anyways, correct?
No, they get funded out of the general fund, but capital projects. So yeah, I do think we need to keep the money separate. And I don't mind saying this is the county's contribution or donation because we're given 4 million of ARPA plus maybe another $700,000 or $800,000 donation to capital
I guess
projects.
that's what I would like. to
So we
see
could,
recommended.
we could donate the labor, but it would still. have to be-
I'd still need to account for it, yeah, because then we have to present all that information to use it for their insurance and all that sort of stuff. They need to see the actual costs and we'd want to put that in there.
I agree. So, but it saves,
Yeah.
save us $7,000-8,000 that could be,
Yeah, we don't have to spend $15,000, we only spend in
Yeah.
7. So it's great.
That's everything we have. If you're comfortable with all of those, other than the one about attic access, then we'll make some adjustments and then come back to you. You'll see, next time you'll see this in a commission meeting.
So you think this will be the end of it or not?
We do have change order 6 coming.
we still have
we know
that
that
duct
there's-
work and things. That's why it's so big. Remember the duct work that they're trying to figure out that had to be changed
Okay.
underground?
Yeah, that's
duct work.
underground ductwork
That's
that
the
they had
biggest
an
portion
issue
of
with.
that.
And we just found out that the contractor who did all the soil work hadn't billed us until now for one part of that work, which, you know, the work was done and it is owed. But we thought we were done paying that soil contractor and we're not. So that's about 17,000. So we know we're looking at about 47,000 for this underground ductwork change. And at least 17 for the additional soil work, not additional
Those-
soil work, but
Those two things are included in the
In
box that's highlighted, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can see it up in the formula. There's the 17,000 plus the
Yes.
50,000 plus, he had me at another 5,000. Just in case there's not exactly that, so
well,
that's,
another
So
couple.
change order 6 is included in this conversation.
Yes. it
Yes.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
It is.
That's what I understand.
So we're hoping, that's our guess at what change order 6 will come in at.
Scott, did these show the money coming back from Ogden City for like our site and things like that?
that's
It's
this
already-
number right here, this
I just wanted-
$100,000.
Great.
Yeah.
So we requested that, correct?
We gotta give us a portion.
Yes, Ogden City is going to refund half of that and then half when we finish the project.
Okay.
They'll hold on to 10% of that for a year
Yeah.
as a guarantee of the work that's been done out in the street. But we will eventually get all of that,
Eventually.
yes.
Yep.
Okay. Good with this? Thank you.
Yeah, good.
Choice.
Thank you.
The old Rod McClure.
Yeah.
Okay,
Make some more cookies.
Do you have just 5 minutes for an administrative item?
Thank you.
entertain a motion to saunter.
Motion to saunter.
Second.
All in favor?
All right.
You'll let me know.
All right, looking for a motion to cease to saunter.
Motion to cease the counter.
Second.
All in favor?
I,
Item 8,
by the way, Tina Cannon, I talked to Tina Cannon, that's,
what you want?
she's, oh, you're good.
You just gave her a heads
Yeah,
up.
yes, give her a heads up, she's good to go, yeah.
Does she
Okay.
want something from us though, or?
No, right, yeah, I said, we'll be getting you some more stuff.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, item 8 is discussion regarding 5900 West change order. Gary Myers.
Yeah.
I didn't check my email yet,
That's okay.
but go ahead.
Commissioners, as you're aware, we started a project with UDOT a year and a half ago or so, where we're replacing 2 bridges. One of them's on 5900 west, excuse me, the other's 4100 north up in the valley. So during construction, they ran into a water line that was going to be right smack in the middle of the foundations for the bridge abutments for 5900 west. In an effort to expedite things, they went ahead and moved forward with what's called a force account. Basically, what that means is they document manpower, equipment, the materials necessary to move the water line so that the bridge can be built according to plans. And so they went ahead and moved forward with that. We're coming backwards a little bit and documenting the change order through signatures at this point. Just to give you a feel for what the overall budget is on the project. The project bid for almost $2.7 million to do both bridges. That's both of them included. They started with the 5900 bridge. When you bid these projects, you bid what's called a contingency. That's about 15% of the total bid. That amounts to roughly just over $400,000. To do the water line loop that we had to do, it cost approximately $33,000 to loop that water line out of the way. That still leaves us a contingency amount of just, they're gonna have to redo a wall. So that's gonna knock it down probably another 10,000. So that brings us down to about $360,000 left. We don't anticipate any other issues on 5900, but as soon as 5900's done, they are moving directly onto the 4100 North Bridge up in the valley. Same contractor, same contract, everything, same.
So they'll start up in the valley when?
Right now,
March
March 3rd.
3rd.
Mhm. And their contract allowed them 150 working days, which is roughly about 7.5 months. Right now, they're planning on their schedule, that's the word. Their schedule that they've got, critical path schedule, shows on March 10th through the 1st of July, which is roughly half the time that they would need to build that bridge. I only bring that up as the contractor has been really good to work with, and he's shown a lot of signs of efficiency.
And that's on 4400 north?
4100 north,
Okay,
Right
Yeah.
by River Road.
yeah,
come over the divide, follow that down to the river, that's the same road.
okay.
So we're kind of doing this change order a little bit retroactively. I've been working with Commissioner Bolos, and she's the chair, to get an account set up in UDOT system called Masterworks. She got that started last week, and we're hoping that she gets that finalized and whatnot, but keep in mind, this total amount, the 400,000 of contingency, we're technically only on the hook for about 6.7% of that, according to the match of all of this.
Oh, good.
So that drops our participating amount down significantly on this $33,000 change order. So before she is prompted to sign the contract, excuse me, I wanted to at least get in front of you and explain this. The original plan, I was talking with Scott Park just briefly before this meeting. We were planning on using Prop 1 to fund these projects all together as well too. So that's where the money would come from that we're spending.
Good job.
So any questions you might have for us at this point on
That's
this?
a beautiful job. That's about
Makes
done.
sense.
Have the prompt ready to sign.
Okay.
My account's been approved.
Right, great.
How about
You're okay.
that? I'll let him, that's good to know, actually.
You know, I always believed in you. I knew you'd make progress.
I'm glad I have your support, for sure. So, yeah, figured it would help to know why we did it, what happened, and what the numbers would be.
How big was that water line you had to move?
10 or
10?
12, it was.
Was high pressure too?
High as they get.
Yeah.
Whose is it?
HDM,
It's
HDH,
Warren was-
PDM?
Let's see.
Yeah.
So it was.
It's under pressure.
Yeah, and so they worked a lot with Randy Giordano to get that shut down and work with the neighbors to not have them out of water too long. They were able to lay the loop right adjacent to the existing line, so they were left in service as long as possible.
Yeah, it's great. What a great deal.
Yeah, they're a great crew.
It's kind of a new contractor and new to the contracting world out there. He's been doing it a while, but he started his own.
What's his
company.
name?
Pride Contractors,
Right.
Pride Construction, I
I
believe.
believe he's out of South Jordan.
He used to work with RLW.
Okay.
And so he's been.
Well,
in
that's
the
good.
business
That's a
while.
good report. That,
Yeah.
man, that's a great one. Shut
So,
up, boy.
So that up in the valley, that 4100 north will be shut down for many months.
That's a notice. We gotta get a notice out.
in Ashley's credit,
10th
he's
of
not-
March, to the 4th of July.
Ash isn't the kind to toot his own horn, but he actually got with Jessica last week.
What?
Preemptively about this, and he's on the
Wow.
ball on this, so I wanna make sure
That's why
credit-
she's laughing.
credit's due.
Good job.
Wow.
Every once in a while, the gears turn.
You know, that budgeted WD-40 with them silk straws, it worked out pretty good.
All righty.
Hey, any questions for us, commissioners?
No.
Oh,
You comfortable signing this when you
Yeah,
get
the
prompted?
signature is not there, but it's asking me why I wanna have an account, so you'll have to help me with that.
Okay, not a problem.
I don't know why.
I'll start having some conversation about getting the signature coming your way.
I was told to. Okay,
Yeah.
item 9,
motion to adjourn, Madam Chair.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you, everyone.